Hi guys, this is Bonfree from L World. This is FOE Advanced. Thanks for joining today. So I wanted to talk about an oddball strategy I stumbled on in trying to solve a question about being an LMA, for example, or an early era player who wants to stay there but who has a high level arc and they want to start sniping. Well, the problem with that is that you're in an early era, and by nature of the definition, if you want to snipe your neighborhood, you're going to have really slim pickings. So even if you have a level 120 arc in LMA, it's just not going to be a worthwhile thing. In fact, you probably couldn't get to a 120 arc, because of the lack of profits you're gonna have. So I came up with this concept to perhaps help you guys do this and get there and be able to snipe much higher era players that actually want to be sniped. So this is a combination of philosophies I've kind of glued together based on my own experience. So this is my own stuff. I don't know if it works for everybody, but the reason I have my guild's treasury up here is because there are players in much higher eras, all the way up to SAV, that want to feed their treasuries with lower era goods. So if you have goods production, a healthy goods production, and you have EMA, HMA, and LMA goods, there are high level players that want those. Not necessarily saying all SAV players want them, but maybe CE players, OF players, whoever is in charge of filling the treasury, they're going to want these earlier era goods, and they will trade. And I'm getting there. Hang with me. This is a really weird scenario. They will trade you oftentimes 1-to-1 for much higher era goods. So therein you already see the benefit of being able to say, I'm going to trade you 5,000 copper for whatever. I mean, for say 5,000 future. Then you can trade those down. Now, again, this video isn't necessarily about trading. It's about sniping. But the way you get there is you need to find friends through making these relationships, these trading relationships, and those people that you're trading with aren't necessarily your sniping targets. They're probably pretty astute players that do locks, and you're like, where is this going? So the strategy is, and I'll tell you where it's going, the strategy is to friend up people that are responsible for their treasuries. And you'll see that in many cases, by just looking at guilds. So just go to, the guild list and start looking through top guilds. Like look through the top 100 guilds if you want to take the time to do it, and just see, if anyone there. So let's go to VOV, for example. So perhaps here someone is, gonna have a title of treasury keeper or something like that. In this case, I'm not sure. I wasn't really prepared for this part of it, but the idea is you would look through the players, and in many cases you'll find who is responsible for the treasury. You reach out to them and say, hey, I have early era goods to trade. Would you friend me up? And are you interested in doing 1-to-1 trades for higher era goods? I do this in my diamond farms. I do it a lot in my lower era cities, and it works at least half the time. So anyway, let's say that, this player, Kate Winslet, she is in charge of the treasury. We're like, yep, let's friend up, and we start trading. Well, now you have access to Kate's, to her tavern, right? So you go there. I clicked wrong here. So you go to Kate's tavern, right? And now you have access to who her friends are. And randomly, you're going to just have to friend people up, and you're going to have to try to find players that prime their buildings for self-leveling. I'm not suggesting you go in and start sniping players that are, not real aware of how, how vulnerable they are, say on a swap thread. Obviously, swap threads, you can snipe swap threads. I try to avoid that because I want to have lasting sniping relationships with my quote friends, because there are plenty of self-levelers that will prime their buildings, and if you have a high enough arc, you can snipe them and they're like, hey, thanks for the FP. So like in this case, I chose Kate because I've known Kate a long time, and this player primes the buildings, and like in this case, she didn't put anything on it. Like, let's take this one for example. She'll put a little bit on the building. Well, that's a swap, so I'm not going to get involved with that. I'm not doing very good on my examples here. But the way you find it is they'll put a little bit of FP. So here we go. Here's the example I was looking for. They'll put, like in this case, 219 priming, which indicates they want to level this building, and there's no other swaps on it. And you can tell these are not swaps, right? These are snipes, right? So this is like a green light to snipe. Generally there's about 10% profit in these types of snipes if you have a level 80 arc or higher. Obviously higher profit if you have a higher arc. But I have about half of my friends list comprised of players that play this way, and I just refer to them as self-levelers. There may be other terms for them. I really don't know, but they don't complain at all when I'm adding FP. I'm getting, and the way I've broken out in this case, in this example, the way I broke out of LMA to be able to find much better snipes in higher era players is to go this route. Now, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some focus. You're going to end up finding friends and then sniping them. You're going to be like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you sniping a friend? Some people are really like not okay with that. And and then if that happens, when that happens to me, I'm just like, oh, sorry, no problem. I make sure, I pay 90 on that snipe and I unfriend them and everything's fine and I move on, So if I find any complainers that, but generally I don't. When you find players that self-prime the way I described, you'll be fine. The other cool thing is now you're going to have higher era goods through that relationship that you can now trade down, and now you can start selling goods for GBs to other players, maybe in your guild or outside your guild, and it's a win-win, because if you fully trade down from, say, future era, you can turn future era into thousands of lower era goods, right? Or salve on down. So, and then of course, if you have this friends list, like you would, potentially have, like the way I described it, you're going to have friends from all eras who, who you got there through the gateway of just connecting with maybe a few, thirsty treasurers who are trying to feed their GBG machine, but you're supplying them with, those lower era goods that they're not producing enough of to keep their coffers full. So if you have any questions on this, let me know. I know it's a fairly complex strategy, but I guarantee you it will work if you do it. So I hope this was revealing and helpful. Let me know if you have any clarifying questions on this, and I will talk to you later. Forge on.